Hi, welcome to part two of culture. And we're going to pick up talking about different subcategories of culture. And the first one is popular culture. This is probably one that you've heard of quite a bit. It is one that is talked about most often. And popular culture is essentially what's popular. And popular culture has some unique characteristics. One is that it is large. And what I mean by that is it covers a large territory. We're talking about culture that is at a national level, at a multinational level, or even a global level. So we're not talking about the culture of a small village or a small tribe. We're talking about culture that has, in many cases, a global territory. It is also heterogeneous. And what I mean by that is it crosses over demographics such as age or gender, religion. Uh, all different subcultures can be part of the larger popular culture. So it is made up of many different types of people and many subcultures. It also tends to occur predominantly in urban areas, and then it may diffuse to smaller areas. But generally speaking, the popular trends, for instance, don't start in a tiny town. They tend to start in large urban areas and diffuse from there. So there seems to be a certain urbanness regarding popular culture. And then lastly, I put changing cultural traits. Now, cultural trait, as I discussed briefly in the prior PowerPoint, is anything that has to do with culture, whether it be our language, the type of clothing we wear, the type of utensils we use. Any characteristic of culture is a cultural trait. And with popular culture, it changes quite frequently. So it can last as long as a few years, several decades, or just a few weeks or just a few days. So what's popular today may not be popular tomorrow. So when we think of popular culture, we tend to think of things like fashion, for instance, or music styles, or maybe trendy foods, or even popular TV shows or popular celebrities. These are things that we know are fleeting, so they might be popular today, but next month there'll be something new. So it's constantly changing and it can change very quickly. So popular culture is, we can call it the mainstream culture, the global culture, and it changes very, very quickly. Now, at the other end of that, we have local culture. And local culture tends to be at a smaller scale. So it can be at a collective scale or community scale. So much, much smaller than popular culture. And this usually involves a group of people that have shared experiences. So they might have a shared history, they follow similar customs, they have similar cultural traits, and they also work hard to preserve those traits and those customs. Now, again, these two different cultures, local and popular, are not separate from each other. The local culture can be a subculture or a microcosm working within the larger popular culture. But if we think about just towns in California, we can probably think of several that have a unique local culture that may be represented by a particular activity that goes on in that area, or maybe a particular ethnic heritage in that area. We don't even have to go far from Fresno, where we could look just at Clovis, for instance, where there's a certain Western cowboy feel to the town, and they work to preserve that through the facades of buildings, through statues in Old Town, to festivals and parades. All the towns in California that have, entire days or fairs dedicated to a vegetable or a fruit, that's an aspect of local culture. So it's a smaller group at a community level, or sometimes even a neighborhood level, shared experiences, shared traits, and they want to preserve that. So they view it as important. Now, within local culture, you can even have further subdivision of that. And one is rural local cultures. So we're talking about this type of community or this type of collective, but in a rural setting. And there are some characteristics to that. And one is that they tend to migrate less frequently. Like we mentioned earlier, one fact involving American culture is mobility. The average American will move anywhere from, say 9 to 12 times in their lifetime. We're very mobile. Typically in a local culture, particularly a rural local culture, that may not happen. You may be born into a community and die in that community several generations. So migration is less frequent. Also, the economic activity is part of their daily life. And what I mean by that is what they do to survive and to earn an income and to take care of themselves financially. It's not just a job, but it's part of who they are. It is actually part of the culture. This particular picture is, to put an example of Indian reservations. Okay, so this is on a reservation. It's a protest supporting whaling. And, or rather demonstration supporting whaling, because they feel that this is an activity that is not just an economic activity, but it's an economic activity that is part of who they are. It is a cultural custom that has been passed down through the generations. So that's different than this is just what I happen to do to earn a paycheck. We can look at, say, an Amish community the same way. Their economic activity, whether it be farming or making furniture or baking or whatever, is not just something to do, but it is part of what it means to be Amish. So that is what I'm referring to when I say it's the economic activity is part of their daily life. What I mean by that is it is entrenched in the culture and part of the culture and not just a job. So not only do we have local cultures that are rural, we also have local cultures that are urban. And in an urban setting, we also have some unique characteristics. And one is ethnic neighborhoods. And we've all seen ethnic neighborhoods. And these are sometimes referred to as ethnic enclaves, but it's when you have clusters in a particular area of a particular ethnicity. And if you go to any city of a certain size, I don't know what the magical number is in terms of population, but if you go to any large city, you're going to see these, whether it's a little Italy or whether it's a Chinatown or a Japantown, where people of a particular ethnicity will come together. And these usually begin organically, where you have a group of people from a particular area that move someplace else. And just naturally, if friends or family move, they're going to seek out those that are already there. And that trend will continue to perpetuate itself. And then before you know it, you have a neighborhood where businesses are then catered to that particular ethnicity. Now, when you have ethnic neighborhoods, you sometimes often have the idea of commodification, which then links to authenticity. Now, this can happen within an ethnic neighborhood or without an ethnic neighborhood, but we often see it in ethnic neighborhoods. And what commodification is essentially selling a cultural trait or putting a price tag on culture. So taking an aspect of culture and selling it. And that could be a food, that could be a souvenir of some sort. It could be a dress, that you buy, or like a kimono or something like that, for instance. But it's an aspect of culture that you're then selling. So the question then becomes, is it authentic? Because everyone wants that authentic experience. And of course, we have no way of actually knowing that. I mean, in some cases, we might see trinkets for sale that people of that culture would never use. It's a different version of it, or it's a mass marketed version of it, or it's nothing like the original version of it. If you go to a restaurant, how do you know it's authentic? I mean, if you asked someone where is an authentic Mexican restaurant and they sent you to Taco Bell, what would you think of that? Would you say, are you crazy? And why? What are you not seeing at Taco Bell that tells you it's not authentic? Or what would you need to see there in order to make it authentic? And people might have a variety of different answers. They might say, I need to see certain types of people there, or I might need to see certain types of food there, or I might need to see the food prepared in a certain way. Or it might just come down to, it needs to be a place that looks like, my grandmom's working in the kitchen and she's bringing out food. So everyone can have their own opinions on this. It's very subjective of what's considered authentic. But it can be taken, very, very seriously in some cultures, to the point where it is illegal to use certain terminology for certain types of things because they don't want to degrade the authenticity. I often have an issue with the Philadelphia style cheesesteak, for instance, where you can go to Subway and buy a authentic Philadelphia cheesesteak. Well, you can't. So you're not going to go to Subway and get that, because anyone that is from the Philadelphia area knows that you need a particular type of bread, a particular cut of meat, a particular type of cheese that need to come together to make an authentic Philadelphia cheesesteak. Now, what you might have at Subway or any other restaurant might be a sandwich with some steak and cheese, but when you attach the Philadelphia to it, you're now giving it a different connotation. You're now trying to commodify it in a different way, which may go against authenticity. I always tell the story of one time when I was in East Africa. I went to what was called an authentic Maasai village. So this was an area where you could go see the Maasai tribe, which are a semi-nomadic tribe, primarily cattle herders in East Africa, and you can go to their village. And you pay a certain fee, you go in and you walk around and you get your picture taken and all that. And it was towards the end of the day. And upon closing, what we saw were the Maasai people that were working there were packing up their things, and then they went home to their actual Maasai village. So this really brought up the question of authenticity. What is authentic? This was their job, to come from their actual Maasai village to a commodified tourist attraction called an authentic Maasai village and just act Maasai all day, and then they went home. So that brings up this point of what is true authenticity. Was that authentic or was it not authentic? Again, that's subjective. This is a company that is taking this commodification authenticity approach, the Irish pub company Pubs, and they essentially came up with a franchise. This is, if you go to an Irish pub company pub, no matter where it is on the Earth's surface, you will get an authentic Irish pub experience. So no matter where you are, it will feel as though you are walking into an authentic pub that you would go to in Ireland. Now, again, you could question this, and they could say, well, we have certain decor on the wall, we offer certain types of food, we import certain things, maybe they even bring in certain staff, I don't know, do they train them to speak with an Irish accent? I have no idea. But the question does become, is it authentic? Can it be truly authentic if it is a replication of it, if it is commodified in some way, or can you actually commodify culture to the point that it is considered authentic? This is the end of part 2, and in part 3 we'll talk about diffusion as well as ideas regarding cultural landscapes and cultural imperialism.